I went to a sale my LCS was having and picked up some great comics that have surprising high value when you get high grades on them from CGC. Stay tuned to see this comic book haul. Welcome back, comic book fans. This is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and today I've got a small comic book haul for you. These are books I picked up from one of my LCSs here in the Baltimore area called Collector's Corner. They have two locations, but the one I go to usually is the one in Parkville, Maryland, and that's the one we're going to talk about today. And we'll talk about the comics that I picked up today from this great shop. They had some really cool comics in there that I think you're gonna be shocked about some of the values if you can get some of those high grades, 9.4 and above. Definitely, I'm going to give you some information on all those books. But before I begin with the books, what I always ask you guys to do, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my shows when they come out on Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. So, enough plugging for myself. Let's get to the books. Alright guys, so like I said, I ended up going to Collector's Corner up in Parkville, Maryland. It is one of my favorite local comic book shops here in the Baltimore area, and as you guys know, there are a lot of comic book shops here that are really good. I go to Third Eye Comics a lot. I go to Cards, Comics, and Collectibles. There are several others here in the Baltimore region that I go to, but I end up going to this shop an awful lot because they do a lot of sales, and they had a sale. Now, I'll tell you this right now. When you're seeing this, you're going to go, wow, I can't believe, Russ, you've been holding on to these books this long without showing them off. But this is from their big Memorial Day sale over that weekend. And I've been holding on to this haul till then because I needed to get through Heroes Con. And guys, I hope you had a chance to watch some of my daily recaps from Heroes Con. I had a great time. Got some great books down there. But we're back on track right now. But we're going to be playing catch up on this episode, as well as several other episodes coming up with some of the comic book hauls that I've had over the last month that kind of got put on hold again because of Heroes Con. But as I said, this came from Memorial Day weekend sale at Collector's Corner, and I got some really good books. I don't know if it was a 50% off sale. I think it was probably either a 30 or 40% sale. And a lot of times, like I said, I go in there a lot when they have sales, and they have a lot of old back issues. They are not necessarily organized. You kind of have to dig through the boxes each time, and I keep finding really surprising books that they have in here. And this trip was no exception because there was a run of books in here that really shocked me because of the age, and they shocked me because of the quality. But there's other newer books in there as well. Now, as you can tell that the batch I'm going to talk about at the end of this video is definitely a little bit older books, but this first batch right here, I'm going to go through a little bit more modern books. But I will go through these, and I will give you a little bit of information today if you're going to speculate on these kind of books. And a lot of times, this is what I was looking for. Books I can buy for a relatively low value, low price, and then I can get them graded, and hopefully we'll get those 9.8s, 9.4s, 9.6s. Actually, I just want 9.8s, guys. You know that. But the higher the grade on especially some of these modern books is what you need to get. And I'll give you that information. I'll give you what the most common grade for that book is, and meaning there's more. Let's say there's a book that has more 9.6s graded out there on the census than any other. I'm going to give you that information, and I'll give you what some of the recent sale prices are on a book of that condition and when that happened. And I will also give you probably if it's some than a 9.8, if 9.8 is not the most common grade, I will give you that as well, because I think that's kind of interesting. I don't think some of these books will hit 9.8, some of them won't. So just go into that in mind that what I'm showing you are books that I think can either grade out. All of these should grade out fairly high, and I don't know. I'm not speculating on these to be a certain grade. I'm just speculating that they're going to be a high grade. Anyway, I'm rambling. Oh my God, I'm rambling. So let's just get to the books here. First up is a favorite of mine. It is Dark Knight's Batman Who Laughs. And to you guys, I've talked about this book before. I have gotten a couple of these copies signed by James Tynion, who wrote this book. This book right here is the book that got me back into buying Batman and enjoying the James Tynion run. Even though he wrote this, I don't believe he created the Batman Who Laughs, but it got me back into the Batman books, and I really enjoyed this book. I remember seeing this image from this cover on Facebook when it came out, and it just blew me away. I had to know who this character was and what was going on, and I tell you, I immensely love this book, and if I can find this book at a good price, I will usually pick it up if it's in really good condition. It's got that foil kind of cover here that I've definitely seen. There's a lot of color rub or scratches on the spine here, and I try to be mindful of that when I buy this book. But this is a book right here. It's not super valuable as a 9.8, and that is the most common grade that you will find out there. It's a very modern book. It came out in, actually, I'm not sure when it came out. I didn't write that down. My notes I didn't put it in there. But it's relatively over the last few years. So it's a really new modern book, relatively speaking. So for a 9.8 on this book, the most recent sales I had were back in May of 2023, just a month or so ago. And really, it's only $71 on one, $103 on the other. This is a book I would not get graded at this point. I think it had higher values here probably a couple years ago at this point when this character was white hot. But I still like this book, and every time James Tynion shows up at Third Eye Comics, I take a copy of this and get another one signed. And I tell him the same story every time, and I think he's appreciative of the fact that a book that he wrote got me back into comics, well, into DC Comics at least. But great book. Next one up on the list is Captain Britain and MI-13. This is a book that I keep seeing on all kinds of other channels over the last year. It is especially important right now because we've got the Secret Invasion TV series have just premiered on Disney Plus. I haven't watched that yet. I hope it's pretty good, but this is a Secret Invasion tie-in, and I know there was a little bit of spec value on this, and let me give you some data on this. A 9.8 is the most common grade you're going to find. Again, another really new book over the last 10 years or so, maybe 12 years, and the most recent sale I've got is from October of last year for a 9.8 that had a best offer of a $400 buy it now, but it was a best offer was accepted, so I don't know what the exact price is. But in June of last year, this book sold for $200. So you saw that definitely the price of that went up, but I don't have the most current value on that right now. What my research had it, as I said, October of last year. So it'll be interesting to see if this book sees a spike right now or not. I will enjoy watching the show, but you guys let me know. If you watched the Secret Invasion TV series so far, the first episode, let me know what you think of it. All right, third book that I picked up from Collector's Corner was a book I never had this. I guess I had been pulling back on my buying at that time and these were not my Guardians of the Galaxy that I grew up with in the 70s, so I didn't have any real connection to this. But this right here is the first appearance of this certain team, and it is the characters that we basically see in the MCU. I think you had most of the characters. In fact, by the third movie now, we've got Adam Warlock added to the team as well. So I think we just have just about everybody except for the new Quasar that's on this team here that's been in the MCU. But this is a book, I believe it has had higher values, but the most recent one, again, another candidate for a 9.8. It's the most common grade. 9.8s went for, back in May here, just a month or so ago, for $374. It was the best offer, so I'm sure it was a little bit less than that. And then back in April, it went for $350. So this is a book that I think they literally had a they had a $35 price tag on this with their discount. I guess it was 30%. It was $24.50 I paid for that. So this is a book that I will look to be cleaning and pressing and getting it into CGC at some point. I don't know if it's going to cool down much more, but this market's a little weird right now. So I continue to clean and press most of my books in preparation for sending them to CGC, but I'm not really sending them trying to meet the market or everything. I'm looking for books that have sustainable value. And that's kind of what this whole haul really is. All these books here are books that I've already probably seen heights at some point, and hopefully we'll just see continued growth over time, normal growth that we see during a course of time as time passes, not this up and down market that has been happening, but books that just have good value and continue just to have slow growth over time, like good stocks, right, guys? All right, next book up, Batman White Knight #1. This is by Sean Murphy. I know there's been a bunch of different series with this, and it's been an interesting take, sort of an Elseworlds take on Batman, and I've enjoyed reading a lot of these issues. It's just a completely different take outside of the regular DCU stories, and just as a different take, and I've enjoyed this. This is the first issue right here, and this is one that, again, another modern book. You got to get a 9.8 on this to have any real value. And the most recent value I've got on this is a sale back in May of this year for $150. So this one still has a lot of value to it. And at this point, I think when I send books in, I think that $150 threshold is what's going to have to be met at this stage. Because, again, we're seeing the market kind of come down on a lot of books, and when you see books that were a year ago were $150, $200, now some of these, for example, that Batman Who Laughs, I've seen that book as a 9.8 much higher than that, and now it's dipped under that $100 mark, and it's almost not worth getting books graded and trying to sell them at that point, unless you want them in your PC, and that's a different story. But $150 was the most recent sale I had on that. All right, here's a book I never had because I had kind of gotten out of a lot of DC books, and I never really cared for this character. I enjoyed stories over the years, but mostly the older stuff, the Silver Age stuff. But this right here is Green Lantern #49, and it's a really nice copy of this. But this is the famous Tom Brady cover, as it's been dubbed, with all the rings, of course. I think Hal has more rings than Tom Brady at this point on this cover. But this one right here, this one has the most common grade on this is a 9.8 as well, even though this one's slightly older than the ones I have just shown. Still a 9.8 is what you want on this, and most recent sale was, again, back in May of this year for $125. Again, another best offer on eBay, so I'm sure it was not $125, I'm sure it was a few dollars less. But great cover, and I believe this is the one, this is issue 49, that leads into 50, and I believe that's when he changes his, into, was it Felix? Felix. Oh my God. I'm completely forgetting the name of the character. They actually had that issue at the store, but it had some ticks on the cover, so I bypassed that book. But great cover nonetheless, and a great storyline. So definitely one that I thought was kind of interesting, especially since I don't pick up a lot of DC comics outside of, say, Batman, for example. But here we go. I've got another DC comic right here, and I did this because of the condition and the age of the book. It is Karate Kid #1, and this is from May of 1976. It's got a wonderful Mike Grell cover. If I'd been smart, I probably might have taken this book down to Charlotte with me because Mike Grell was there, and I did get a couple signatures from him, but I had these books on the side, so when I was prepping for HeroesCon, I didn't even think about the book until I sat down to pull the books and do all the research, and yeah, it's another Mike Grell cover, so that would have been cool to get signed. But anyway, this book right here, I bought this because of the condition of the book. I didn't even look it up on Key Collector or anything, and I'm going, okay, it's an old book. It's a 1976 book. It was a very popular character from the Legion of Superheroes. Let's see, put a few dollars into this. Again, I paid $14 for that. But again, I bought this on condition. I mean, this is a really, really sharp cover. I didn't buy these books just to read them. I bought them because I am speculating on them. I may keep them in the PC, but the idea on every one of these books is to get them cleaned, get them pressed, get them in the CGC, and really shoot for those super high grades. And that's why I'm giving you values on these books. I'm giving you shown you examples of books that you can go out there and find these wonderful copies, put a little bit of effort into them, put a little bit of extra money into them through CGC, and you've got a much more valuable collectible at that point. And while I do this channel and I talk about speculation all the time, it isn't all about speculation. I do come at these from a place of love. I probably will read half of these books before I end up, sending them in the CGC. But I love these books, but I also look at them with an eye for speculation. But let me give you some values on this. The most common grades you're going to find, it's a tie between a 9.6 and a 9.4. 9.6s go for about $150. Most recent sale was in October of 2022. And a 9.4 also sold last year. The most recent sale on that was and I believe it was in April. And you've got to get a 9.6 on this or above, because a 9.4 only went for $56. So this is a book that I will have to, especially with the age, I'll have to really pay attention to it and make sure that it's worthy of going into getting graded. Now, 9.8 on this sold here last year in June, a year ago, for $360. Again, another best offer, but I'm sure that was well over that $300 mark. So, good book. Definitely one that I will be interested in seeing how it comes out of the press and seeing just how good this book really is. But those were the first batch. And like I said, this was a really good haul. And what did I say when I started the video? I said, I've got some older books in there that when you go to the shop and you dig through the books, you can find some runs of books that have come in from collections or wherever. And they had a couple boxes, not completely full, but runs of Gold Key comics from the 60s. And various different titles. And I'll be honest, I'd already pulled a lot of these books I just shown you, and I'm realizing, okay, price is going up. How much I'm going to spend is going up. I don't want to just keep spending. But they had these wonderful runs of Space Family Robinson, Dr. Occult, Samson, and more importantly, two of my favorite Gold Key runs from the 60s and into the 70s was Magnus, Robot Hunter, and Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom. And that's what I found. They had good runs of all of that. They didn't have all the issues, but they had good runs. And these books are anywhere, most of them, I'm just looking, most of them were, a couple of them, the older ones were about $15. Some of the newer ones in here were about $10. And as I said, we're running a 30% off sale, so it was less, every one of them was less than these cover price, the price stickers that they had on these. But I ended up going through these boxes and I picked out these books right here, and I picked out on condition because they either had pressable defects or they were really lacking in non-pressable defects. I mean, the spine ticks, there are almost non-existent on these, and I tell you, these are in really good shape. Let me start with the Magnus Robot Hunter books. Now, they had a few more issues, and anything that had any kind of significant wear, spine ticks, anything like that, non-pressable, as I said, defects, I just bypassed, and I went for really high-grade copies. Let's start with the first one here. This is issue number 7, and number 7 comes from August of 1964. There's only 22 on the census currently, and the highest grade, well, I should say the most common grade out of that whole thing is a 9.2. And it only went for $80 back in 2022, back in May. 9.4s, however, there was a big jump in the price in the last sale sold, but I don't know how relevant that this data is going to be. 9.4 sold, and that is the highest on the census, went for $454 from Heritage Auctions, and that was in 2014. So I don't know how to interpret that. It could be, we could see the market again on a book like this, if you got a 9.4 or above, really elevate because of the scarcity of a grade on a book like this. But I don't know how relevant a price from 2014 is going to be, but that is the most recent and the highest grade that you're going to find on this book out there, that at least that I found when I was doing my research. Now, the other Magnus book I ended up getting was number 28. And number 28 was from November of 1969, and another low census count, only 19 on the census. The highest grade on this was a 9.8, and it had a value. It sold back in 2022. That's a little bit more recent data for $780. I don't think any of these are going to meet that 9.8, but 9.2s on this are the most common grade you're going to find, and that one went, the most recent on that was in 2018 and went for $145. So this book right here could be a surprising sleeper in all these orders right here if we can get a good grade from CGC. All right, that was it for Magnus. Let's put these aside. And let's go on over to Dr. Solar. And these are both characters that I really liked when they brought these characters back in Valiant Comics. And I read those books for a long time. And I remember Barry Windsor Smith was doing the art on Solar on that. And I just absolutely love those issues. But these are the original gold keys. Here's the oldest one that I picked up. And this is issue number 7. And number 7 came from May of 1964. There's 20 on the census right now. And the highest grade you're going to find is a 9.6. And it went for $300 back in 2016. That's, again, old data. I don't have anything for a 9.6 any more recent than that. But the most common grade out of these books that are on the census, excuse me about that, is a 9.4, and it only went for about $83, and this is 2013 on eBay. I can almost guarantee if we can get a 9.4 or 9.6, I think this book is with the age, like I said, 1964, I think this book would do much better than what that price is from basically 10 years ago. Next one I ended up getting was number 9, and number 9 came from October of 1964, only 18 on the census, and the highest grade on this, and the most common grade, is a 9.4, and it went for $2,000, that would have been awesome, $216 back in November of 2022. So we'll see how we do on this one. The next one this is issue number 14. I think this is my favorite cover out of all the Solar ones that I got here. And this one right here came from September of 1965, 34 in the census, so there's definitely a few more on the census right now. There is a 9.8 that got sold back in April of 2020 for $550. The most common grade on this is a 9.4. Now, it sold for $300 back in May of 2022. So that's some pretty decent, more recent data. It's a little bit more relevant. And again, the theme on all of these is the condition on these are fantastic, and I think they're all going to grade really well unless there's just something I missed when I open these books up and really get them into the shop. And we'll do clean and press, of course, and we'll inspect the books to make sure they're intact and everything else is, and there's no hidden surprises or anything like that. But all of these books I really have high hopes for. And then the last one out of this haul today, the last book overall and the last Dr. Solar book, is issue number 26. It is from January of 1969, 23 on the census. The most common grade you're going to find is a 9.4, and it only went for $50 back in August of 2018. But the 9.8 does exist out there. Somebody had a sale of that back in 2020 off of eBay. I guess it was December of 2020, and it went for $702. So that's pretty good. You got to know there's a 9.8 out there. But one thing I just noticed when I was doing this is you'll notice that the most common grades on all these books, and these are all old books from the 60s, and you're seeing these, the most common grade is 9.2s, 9.4s. That's pretty high for books. But again, I think what you're seeing is anything lower grade that you think would grade lower than that, people are not sending these books in. There's so few on the census. So of course the most common grade is going to be a slightly higher, because the better the book, that's what's going to go in. People aren't sending in bad copies of these books. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this comic book haul, and I hope you guys get a chance to visit the Collector's Corner up in Parkville or in Bel Air, Maryland. Either store will be pretty good. I know that the Parkville one is really good, and I will continue to go back there and pick up great comics whenever I can. But let me know what you think about either the store or the comics today by leaving me a comment in the comment sections below. But as I said, that's it. Guys, if you're ever interested in any of the books I have on the channel like this, I always say reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or contact me on Instagram on my Instagram account. Just DM me there. But if you guys are ever interested in buying a book straight up, go to my eBay page or my Shortbox page, and you will definitely see all the books I've got for sale right now. On eBay, I've got a lot of raw books as well. So definitely check that out. And if you're ever interested in bundling anything, just contact me like I said before. But that's it, guys. I'm out of here. I will see you for the next show. I'm sure it's going to be another comic book haul because we have a lot of catching up to do. So until then, remember, every comic has a story.